little grooving to the open of Dreamcasters. How are you, Bill?
I am fine, Devon. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everyone listening and watching.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm okay here. How are you there? Is the question.
I'm still fighting this whatever that jumped on me. It's not COVID. I've done enough COVID tests to, go into business of COVID testing. I mean,
Hmm.
I've done that and it's not that. But it really hit Nashville. They're calling it the triple demic.
Oh, okay.
And COVID, RSV, and flu has hit Nashville with a storm. I mean, it was just, but I just think it was a flu and it's just kind of hanging in there. All the good stuff, all the good stuff. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yeah. Well, make sure you get this stuff out of the way in this first week of
Yeah.
January, and that way you can move on with the year.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm desperately hoping for. I thought it'd be kind of cool for us to unpack what it's like to start really a practical plan. We're at the new year. What do you do with the brand new year? What do you do to kind of make those dreams happen or to have the dreams in the first place? And I think hitting the ground running on the first of the year it's an exciting time, It's an exciting time. It's a good
Yeah.
time for dreams and plans. What do you do?
Um, what do I do? How do I plan?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What are some things that you do at the beginning of the year to kind of get those dreams started?
Um, Kind of, it's that's an interesting question because it's not one dimensional, right? I mean, you,
Right.
you you do a bunch of different things. Um, I think the first thing that I do is give myself a little bit of a roadmap, and well, you and I are the king and queen of making lists for ourselves, little pieces of paper um,
Yeah.
uh, and notes. But what I try to do is kind of get some of the like the big ticket items. Um, what do I want to accomplish? What did I do last year that I can improve by 10%? Now, sometimes it's something like income, right?
Yeah.
How do I make a little more money? It's not hoping to hit the lottery. It's just how can I work a little harder or a little
Mhm.
smarter? Um, how can I lose a little weight? How can I eat a little healthier? How can I, take those kind of steps? And I always make lists for myself. And that's where I start. I start with pen and
Mhm.
paper because if I'm looking at it, I think I can visualize it a little easier.
And a lot of people will use their phone to take notes, which is fine if that's your jam, but it's the act of writing something
Uh-huh.
that actually starts putting the groove in your brain. And people don't realize that writing a list, even if you don't look back at that list,
Uh-huh.
it will put a groove in your brain. And I love that question. What can I improve by 10%? You're not trying to change the world today. You're just going, okay, let me put things, what can I get? Just let me move ahead with this
Exactly.
particular thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And so what I try to do is uh, you add a practical element sometimes to the impractical, if you will. I mean, when we're talking about dreams are in and of themselves are intangible. The things you do to achieve it might be tangible. I mean, but they're outside the box. They're a little bit beyond your reach. That's why they're a dream, right? So
Mhm.
um, you kind of have to define that a little bit, define exactly what you want to do, and sometimes making a little more time for yourself helps you achieve that. Giving yourself a little more money, putting yourself in a little better position. Um, if if you want to, in my particular case, I just want to get a little healthier.
Mhm.
I wasn't sick, but I was not. I'm used to being a little more athletic. I'm used to being a lot of things, and I'm not getting any younger, so I have to approach it a different way. I can't just run to the gym and start lifting weights like I used to do. That
Mhm.
I'll hurt myself at the ripe old age of 65 right now. So I have to approach it a little differently. Um, that's where I kind of call in that 10% theory. Can I just be 10% better than I was, 6 months ago? That would be great.
That's realistic dreaming. That's
Yes.
realistic. I mean, people, and I think the discouragement comes when we start looking at the package 10 years from now,
Mhm.
but we say we want to do it tomorrow. And
Yeah. And there's another aspect of this that I'd like to talk to you today for a moment, because we want to talk about some of the tangible things you can do, that,
Mhm.
or the premise of today. And the thing is, what what I'm looking at part of the time is when we make New Year's resolutions,
Mhm.
right? And um, how do you change your mindset? I mean, the mindset has to change before you can do something practical.
Right.
And how do you change your mindset? Well, one of the ways is this: if you start from a position, I always like to call it the position of power. Starting from a position of power would be me saying, up until now, um, I didn't get enough sleep. Up until now, I didn't fold my laundry properly, right? I just leave stuff all over the place.
Mhm.
Um, these little things. Up until now, I didn't go to the gym enough. I didn't work out enough. I didn't read enough. I didn't learn enough. All these things.
Mhm.
The proper way to approach all of these obstacles is from a position of power and say, up until now, I didn't do that, but starting today, I'm going to do this. I'm capable of doing this. Now, that's incredibly different from coming from a place of self loathing and saying, I'm so stupid, I can't figure
Mhm.
out this computer thing. Matter of fact, truth be told, 5 minutes before we came on air, I was complaining to Devon about the fact that I have such horrible computer skills. I lack computer skills. And we both kind of laughed and said, well, that's not an excuse. I should be able to just talk to somebody and learn how to do it, take a
Mhm.
class, go to YouTube, Google, whatever I want to do, it's out there.
Mhm.
And so I did make a little note to myself right there
Mhm.
that said, that
Yeah.
has to stop. You have to come from a position of power and tell yourself that why you can do it as opposed to why you haven't done it. That's a very different mindset.
Right. Up until now, da da da
Hmm.
da. And now from this day on, I will.
Yeah.
And whatever that is for you. Now, here's another thing that is a practical application. And we talked about this, both of us, before we went on, about not knowing how to do something. And instead of Bill saying, I just don't know how to do that and I never will, which is very typical of people.
Hmm. Oh, I'm
I
very
just,
guilty.
everybody, and especially when it comes to technology, our age group, Bill, people will just say, I can't. I
Yes.
don't know it, therefore I can't. Okay, here's my question for you. If you're looking for something to do in your life to get more knowledgeable on a subject, we are not stagnant. If we have a brain and it is working, we can learn things.
Hmm.
As long as we are learning, we're alive. As long as we're learning, we are improving. As long as we, and it doesn't mean that you have to go to university to do it. It doesn't mean that you have to pay a lot of money to go get some strange degree that you have, but it might. It might, if that's what you've always wanted. But what do I need to learn? Where can I learn? There are wonderful organizations that have online courses that you can get a degree, that you can get knowledge on a certain subject. Maybe it's just like one thing. One of the things that I love about you, Bill, is when I asked you before the holiday, you said, I want to get better at cooking for myself.
Oh, okay.
Update, update.
Oh, this is again, I have to remind our audience. We really, Devin and I do not have any real pre-talk before we come on. We come on 4 minutes before this and say, let's run this down. But we don't have like we're not scripted. You just asked about that. So um, in my lovely home here in California, I live with my beautiful girlfriend Shanley and Trouble the Wonder Cat, who is an internet sensation as of this show. She walks behind me sometimes. Um, so we had some folks over for the holidays, and we made, I say we because it was a two-person operation. We made lasagna and actually made it. I actually had my hands in it. I was actually spreading tomato sauce and slicing things, and um, first of all, we made enough to feed, Rhode Island, but we had so much fun. And part of it was me laughing at myself because I put too much of this here and not enough there, and the water wasn't boiling, and I was making mistakes. It wasn't about not making mistakes. It wasn't about perfection at all.
Mm-hmm.
I had said to you the last couple of episodes, yep, I'm telling the audience I'm going to get on this cooking thing because I've been talking about it for too long. It was magnificent. It came out great. Everybody loved it. We made a ton of it. There's still some left over, and it was 3 days ago. It was not only a great result, the feeling was great. Going shopping was great. I don't like shopping, but I liked it this time because it was very focused, and it was very, I'm looking at myself. I'm smiling when I'm saying this. It was invigorating. Other people that cook every day, I hope they have fun, but it was a big deal, and I wanted it to be a big deal.
And Elizabeth says, and I bet it turned out tasting delicious.
It did. I don't mind. I'm not being braggadocious, but it was a tremendous feeling of accomplishment.
And when we're talking about dreams, they don't have to be big, bombastic things that you, like I'm going to walk on the moon. I mean, we're not talking about that. We're talking about literally 10%. 10%. Look at our 10% improvement in whatever it is we do. Okay, I'm going to get 10% more exercise this year than I did last year. That's not a huge amount, but at the same time, it's huge if you do it consistently. I'm going to save money, 10%. I'm changing mine. Mine was, I started 2 years ago with $10 a month. Then I increased to 10%. I didn't realize you to 20 a month. And then this year, obviously a little bit more. And it's amazing what that can do for you when you realize there is a little nest egg.
Yeah, and I think,
and when I say little, I actually do mean little, but
but it's in the right direction. And we've touched on some of these things in earlier episodes where there's a great old saying, and that is, you never go broke making a profit. And what that kind of means is, the easiest thing to use as a model is money, right? Because everybody understands money. But when you're talking about your overall well-being and your positive mindset and all these kind of things, you do have a profit. There is a profit margin. There is a profit and loss there. You can tell when you're not firing on all cylinders. You can tell when you're a little discouraged. You can tell when you're feeling a little depressed. But the fact is, if you could feel a little better every day, it wouldn't take long to feel really good. And that's the extension of that. You never go broke making a profit. If you're taking steps, it's kind of like the laws of perpetual motion, right?
Exactly.
If you stay in motion, that's what you want to do. You want to keep moving.
It's like you're not a tree, move.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Somebody told me that, and I really loved that. And if you're looking for places that you can learn for free or for a small amount of money, there's some places that, like YouTube, I call it YouTube University. You put in what you want to learn, and there are literal classes. And sometimes there's a little money involved, depending upon who it is. You might find a really great teacher that you like and say, you know what? I bet they have virtual classes for me to learn something. Maybe it's learning to cook. Who did you study? Who were you taking your cooking classes from?
From Shanley.
Okay. Okay.
From my girlfriend, right? And she's a wonderful cook, as I know you are, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But I always laugh because I said, I'm a very pedestrian cook. My sister is more of the chef. And, but if you want to eat in this century, you come to my house. Faith is very, it's now I will tell you that she is one of the best cooks I know. My sister can cook. She can throw down. And sometimes there's a lot of things. I will use a canned chicken broth. She will not. She makes all of her own chicken broth. She makes everything from scratch, period. I mean, She's not going to use a canned sauce, a jarred sauce. Not for her. And I will do that on occasion because I realize that I have less time than I have desire for that homemade thing. I
Yeah.
was like, we're going to make this work. We'll zhuzh it up, as Shelly will say here in our office. Udemy is one that Terry Pugh turned me on to, who we have the show with on Wednesdays. Udemy is a fantastic organization, free or low cost classes that you can do online in just about anything. University extension offices have a lot of things, whether it's with food, sometimes it's carpentry. Home Depot and Lowe's offer wonderful classes. If you want to do things like, how do I install a toilet,
Sure.
or how do I lay tile or whatever, they have these very low cost and free, in some cases, little classes to teach you how to do certain things. And of course, the why has got great classes that you can take and learn all sorts of things. Now, Bill, I will bring up that you studied how to become a hypnotist.
Uh-huh.
Now, did you do that online? Because I know it was during 2020, I think, when you
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. I did it online. It was just a fantastic experience for me every step of the way. There was not a second that I was bogged down or that I was regretting it, and it was incredible. And I surprised myself as to how I kind of jumped in with both feet, because I didn't know anything about it. I certainly didn't know any more than the average person does. And to just fully immerse myself in going back to school, which is, there's no other way to say it. That's exactly what it is. It was phenomenal. And everything that we're talking about right now comes into play because I knew that I couldn't do this if I was what we call half stepping, right? If I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out, this was not going to work. If I was looking at it like, let me get this over with, it wasn't going to work. It's one thing when you take your driving test, you take your driver's exam. Well, once it's done, I don't think anybody puts their hands at 10 and 2 like they taught you in driving school, right? You almost don't use a lot of what they tell you. Hypnosis is just the opposite. Hypnosis, no, you better learn. This is not a matter of just passing a test. You better learn what they're telling you,
Right?
Because you're going to have to use it every day in your practice and more, and build on it. And I just fell in love with the process, and it made me realize that if I went after everything else in my life the way I went after hypnosis or music or my writing, I would be a successful person, not necessarily a wealthy person or a famous person, but I would be a successful person. And I take great pride in that, because when we talk about the hypnosis thing, I grabbed it with both hands and wouldn't let go. And I'm still doing it, and I love it. And I really absolutely love it every time I do a session.
Well, here's the thing that I will promise you is just like what is it you will always be, do the thing on saving money that you just said, that quote that you gave us.
Oh, about you never go broke making a profit.
You never go broke making a profit. Well, when you are learning something, you're always improving, and you will never regret learning something new. You will never regret learning. That's the bottom line when it comes to these dreams. When it comes to the practical application, learning something is the thing that keeps us from getting ahead. Whether you go, and I will tell you that there are women in the entertainment industry, there are men too, that are totally obsessed with how they look, which is fine. It's what you are. It's what you do. And I'm no problem with looking your best. No problem with that. But if you worked as hard to learn how to stay relevant in your own business, that will do you as much good as a good facelift. And by that, I mean an authentic person who knows how to use social media well. And I don't mean perfect. I mean authentically and well. And you learn the technical side of things, you will keep yourself in the business more than a lot of the other things that are look, your appearance is going to change. You're going to get older. If you're lucky, if you're blessed, you will get older. And there are things about you that will change, and you can become, I do have friends that have literally become recluses because they cannot deal with the fact that they have aged. You live in Hollywood, you know this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what does that shortchange us when getting older is not a treasure, and you you remove yourself from life because you look differently than you did. Well, one thing, you can preserve your brain if you use it on a regular basis, if you're trying to learn, and you're and that's so important. And I tell people all the time, if you're always learning and you're not saying, I watched it in radio, I watch people go, it's not the way it used to be, I quit, I can't deal with it anymore. Songwriting, I'm old. I can't get anybody to listen to my song. Blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, Burt Bacharach and Hal David were still getting cuts
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
as they moved into their 80s.
yeah, yeah. And this is it's self-limiting. I mean, if you when we talk about people that are obsessed with their looks, and we really don't have to qualify and clarify everything. We know what we're talking about. We're not talking about
Everybody
someone,
does. Everybody
yeah,
does.
we're
Yeah.
not talking about someone who wants to look a little better. We're talking about people that are obsessed with their looks. And essentially what you do then is you're presenting yourself to the world in one dimension. Um, I don't know anybody who, let me find another way to say this. Presenting yourself as a whole person
Mm-hmm.
is never a bad idea, right? Your mind, body, and spirit. When you can present that to the public, as they call it,
Mm-hmm.
forward facing, right?
Yeah.
If you can just be the whole person, you'll always be accepted. You'll always find your tribe. If you're just presenting yourself as a face, if you're just presenting yourself as as a short skirt, if you're just presenting yourself as
A
that,
physique. Yeah.
yeah, then what are you denying yourself? What are you denying the other people? I mean, you have a brain, you have a sense of humor, you have a sense of adventure, you have heart and soul. They're not
Mm-hmm.
seeing any of that. They're seeing a photograph instead of a movie. And I think that's where this all comes into play when we talk about things like your mindset.
Right.
If you're going to the gym, if you're staying at home and cooking healthier as opposed to going to fast food, if you're doing that to make yourself a better person, that's fantastic. If you're doing that because you're looking to have a better photo shoot, I'm not sure that that's as healthy a mindset. So,
Well, and it may not keep you on the right track.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people, there aren't too many people that make it on looks alone. Um, and again, when I say make it, I don't mean be famous. I
Yeah.
mean just be a successful person. But
Yeah.
that's a pretty tough. That's a pretty tough one.
It's totally different. Elizabeth says there are things I'll grab with both hands and go full speed ahead. There are other things I think I should grab and I won't go after them. I've learned they have to be my dreams and not what I think my dreams should be. Oh, that's magical right there. I I got involved in showing horses, and I was going to horse shows, and I hated it with every fiber of my being. I I bought it, and that was somebody else's dream. Pretty
Yeah.
soon I had spent more money than I had. I had more horses than I needed. I was going to these horse shows and getting judged on my hobby. And I didn't love it. It did not make me go, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. What I loved was trail riding. What I loved was brushing a horse. What I loved was being at sunset with my horse and letting them eat and feeling that connection. So what I did was give other dreams to the people that had them. And I took the dreams that I had and I went and played somewhere else. And that's okay. Knowing that you are using your time on the thing that you are passionate about is part of what Dreamcasters is about. I will venture to say that every single human being that watches this has something that they have tucked away that they've never done, but they've always wanted to. And there's a form of it that you can still do.
Yeah. And you know, when you ask somebody what they want to do, sometimes it handcuffs them because they outthink themselves. You know, they outrun themselves in the sense that what you want to hear them say is, well, you know what I really want to do? I really want to paint. You know, I want to sit in my house with an easel and watercolors. But they can't allow themselves to say that sometimes because what they say is, well, I'd like to paint, but see, I don't have the room. I don't have the time. You know, I don't have enough money to do this. I tried it once and it didn't work because um, I had to keep moving the easel because there wasn't enough room in my small apartment. And I can understand some of that, but the fact is, you're outthinking yourself. You know, you're overthinking things. Sometimes I've lived in small apartments. I literally had to take my guitar amplifiers. I actually did this. I'm kind of embarrassed and kind of laughing at the same time because I'm kind of proud of it. I had amplifiers, guitar amplifiers. I've been a musician my whole life. I took it and threw a tablecloth over it and put a lamp on it. So it was like an end table. And then when
Uh-huh.
it was time to do the gig, I took the lamp off and threw the amp in the car. I made room because it
Uh-huh.
was my passion. My passion was to play
Oh,
music and I was going to make it happen. So when people say they don't have the time, they don't have the room, they don't have the money, um, you'd be amazed at what energy will do for you. If you have the energy to make it happen, you can make it happen.
if you've hit a wall, so to speak, and you really want some practical things that you can do, and you cannot get through the mental part of it, that's one of the reasons that we do this show. And Bill's work as a hypnotist is incredible. And getting people through their wall is one of the reasons that we share this with you, because people don't even realize that they can do this, and they can do it virtually from anywhere in the world. You have clients all over the world and you can make this work. And maybe it's a fear. Maybe it's something that's a change in your life. Maybe you spent your whole life doing something, and all of a sudden now, after this last 3 years of sickness or whatever, maybe you can't leave your house. Maybe you can't sing or dance or get on a stage. Maybe you have trouble going into an office for the first time in three
Mhm.
years. All of those things are things that Bill can help you with, and your success rate is incredible. People are literally getting their lives back. So let's talk a little bit about that and how that works, and how they can get in touch with you by using these websites down below.
Yeah, the websites, well, thank you. The websites are right there. And it's funny when you talk about people that couldn't leave their house, you mentioned recluses before. Um, I'm going to say I've had the privilege. I'm going to call it a privilege to work with a few people who it's generally called agoraphobia, right? When
Mhm.
you know, and I've had several clients, and what's difficult for the rest of us to understand, right, is when you have it's an irrational fear most of the time. So it doesn't make sense, right? You
Mhm.
know, we're looking for something, we're looking for cause and effect most of the time. We're looking for 1 + 1 = 2. That doesn't necessarily happen. And when I had essentially several agoraphobics simultaneously, um, what I realized is that what I realized was that the there was a moment when everything changed for them in the negative way, right? They weren't
Mhm.
always, they used to leave the house, they used to drive, they used to go to work, and something happened that stopped them from leaving the house. Now, sometimes it was a little more gradual, but the essence of this is this: if you're willing to take that walk through hypnosis, you'd be amazed at how quickly you arrive at that problem and how quickly how quickly you can jump over the wall.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just a mindset. It really is nothing but getting out of your own way.
Well, I would encourage everybody that it will be time and effort well spent to spend this time with Bill. If this is you and it's something that you feel like you have not been able to share even with your closest friends, what Bill does is totally uh, he keeps it to himself. And there's a certain mode of content. He's not like, you don't post it on Facebook, you don't do all that other stuff.
No, it's the same. It's the same confidentiality ethic as going to a doctor or a psychiatrist, of which I am neither. But uh, my motto is this: when you talk to me, I don't tell anybody anything, but you can tell everybody everything. So if you go home to your husband or your wife or your mom and say, "Hey, this is what Bill and I talked about today," that's great. There's no problem there. I don't mention it to anyone. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason, and it's not just the confidentiality part of it. It's the idea that you have to know that it's a safe space 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And so to that point, it doesn't serve me well to be talking out of school, so to speak. Right?
I wanted people to understand that, and everything. You're not in a group setting. You literally can be home, and like you said, in your pajamas, and make that call. And what you do is just that private for you, and it's for your betterment and for your freedom. Because there's freedom in things like, you want to quit smoking. You have that's one of the base things. That's one of the first things you help people stop.
Freedom is one of my buzzwords. I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things I do is I try to imprint at least a word or an idea or concept. I call it a bumper sticker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not a textbook of 500 words, or not a saying, just I do that snap thing, and I'll say freedom. Now, 6 months from now, you're going to remember the word freedom, because that's deep in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the gateway. That's what we call an anchor that we imprint, and everything else kind of feeds off that. So thank you for using the word freedom, because that's really big for, you know, for a lot of what I do.
Well, it's big for this year for me too. And Elizabeth says, I love that. Having safe space is so very important. And she continues, my life is a complete open book to my trusted soul tribe. For all others, I dole out only what feels safe. And that's the way it should be. That's really the way it
Absolutely.
should be. Well, that's our show for today. And next week we'll join again, and we'll talk about some of the little tools that we have on a day to day that kind of help us get that 10% mark better.
Sure.
And any closing words, Bill?
Just to say that I'm glad this is our first show of the new year of 2024, and I think taking all our New Year's resolutions into this show is going to give us a lot to talk about in the very near future.
I don't know if you can see this. Do you know who's just joined us?
I
Johnny
just saw
Vinoker.
Johnny. Yeah.
Hey, Johnny. And we'll have to have him on as a guest because he does some amazing stuff too. Elizabeth says, I love Dreamcaster Tuesdays. Yes. Yes. Well, you guys be good out there and enjoy yourself. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.